Hey everyone. This episode hits the ground running by revealing a lot about Vegapunk and Clover's relationship, how it really dove into the idea they weren't just colleagues, but they did have an immense amount of respect for each other as friends. But the one thing that did constantly divide them was their ideological view on the Void Century. As the episode reveals, there was a point in time where Vegapunk believed the risk of studying the Void Century just wasn't worth the reward, whereas Clover continued to do so despite the risk. And more than anything, I love how this episode reveals that for as much as Vegapunk would come to change his tune later in life, in order to become the character we would be introduced to in this arc, it's not a stretch to say a lot of what caused those changes was built upon a mountain of regret. The regret that he turned Clover away, the regret that he couldn't be there for his friend when he needed him the most. Like for as happy-go-lucky as Vegapunk acted throughout the early parts of the arc, you can tell a lot of what that was him that a lot of that was him hiding the pain of the many what ifs he's carried throughout his life. And more than anything, I think what happened with Clover was probably the major turning point that made Vegapunk take the precautionary measures that he did. Like going back to what he said about dying in the beginning of the arc, this is something he knew was going to happen even before like the Straw Hats arrived on the island. Like he knew that if the government took the action they did against Ohara, that ultimately what would happen if he ended up what would happen if they ended up doing the same to pretty much to pretty much Egghead. It doesn't even matter the circumstances. So yeah, it's like I again, it really does shine a light on a lot of Vegapunk's character and just who he just a lot of the stuff a lot of who he was, like what's behind the smile, behind the happy-go-lucky attitude he had. In saying that, we also learned Clover's full name, it was Cloud D. Clover. And admittedly, when I first learned this in the manga, this was the point where I started to feel like that initial was popping up a little too frequently to the point where there was kind of becoming a bit of an oversaturation of those with D in their names, and it was starting to feel less special. But with the most recent developments in the manga, it immediately clicked as the reason why Oda did that, because the man was prepping for the origins of that name to be revealed in Elbaf, and I'll leave it at that because the origins are just bonkers as shit, but make so much fucking sense. Now, if I did have a personal gripe with this episode, it's that it kind of dick teased us with an epic moment from the giant that we're not gonna see the actual moment of unfold until the next episode, which fair enough as you give us everything from the moment itself and the flashback in one episode. But even then, I'm saying this in the context that for as disappointing as for as disappointed as I am that we didn't get like the actual moment itself of what of what of what Emmett the Giant is talking about with is it time now to use it? It's like a moot point when looking at the episode as a whole. Also, it's kind of funny, even though the title of the episode is all about Bonnie's moment of sending Saint Saturn flying, which was cool moment, don't get me wrong. But for me, the MVP of this episode is probably Atlas, as she not only turned off Lilith's beacon so she couldn't be tracked, but then she proceeded to pull up one of the most hardcore self-sacrifices by exploding right in front of Nostromo's face, so the Straw Hats could escape. Like, it's that thing where it's that thing where it's an epic moment of self-sacrifice and her just saying, yeah, fuck it all, I'm going out with a blaze of glory. But when you really look at what she did leading up to what Atlas did leading up to that, it's very much that thing where in her mind, as long as one Vegapunk survives to carry on that knowledge, then they basically win. Like Lilith is the one that needs to move on in order to continue like the legacy of Vegapunk. And in now this does Now I will say this does later lead to a small scene in Elbath I'm not a big fan of, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But as a whole, it is like it is an epic moment, and you understand that, yeah, like if they if basically if the pretty much if the only Vegapunk left is the one that's under that's basically under the world government's command, then we're fucked. But if we can keep the if we can keep it if we can keep the whole thing square of like having a Vegapunk who's also on our side as well, then we you give an equal chance as well. And again, I do like how Atlas kind of had the forethought to think about all that kind of stuff. Now, all that said, though, the moment with Bonnie is still dope. Like, fully transforming into her Nika form and sending Saint Saturn flying was just so satisfying after all the bullshit this motherfucker has done. And that that image, the one of baby Bonnie with both of her parents, like, that shit hit in a way where it makes you say, fuck you, Saturn, for tearing this family apart. Like, again, the moment itself of the moment itself of Bonnie punching Saturn is glorious in itself. But for me, the moment that made it really hit home was again that little memory of like baby Bonnie with Kuma and with both her parents, and it's like with Kuma and with her parents, and like saying, yeah, this could have been a happy ending for this family, but Saturn had to fucking go and ruin that shit. With all that said, one final thing I do want to talk about is Vegapunk, because he talks about the myriad of races and cultures who have been erased by the government because of their connection to history. And during this, we cut to Kuma, a buccaneer, King, a Lunarian, and putting a member of the three-eyed race, showing these three characters the ones who have the biggest connections to history. So, showing that these three characters are still going to have a very important part to play in the story. Now, in saying that, I think my biggest question is how things are gonna play out and come together, or more to the point, when. Because I'd have to imagine a lot of this is going to be addressed in some form or fashion after the current arc in the manga. But like whether it has to do with Pudding or even Kuma or something, like some of these plot threads I imagine are going to be addressed in the aftermath. But in saying that, the real reason I am bringing this up is because with this episode kind of drawing attention to it, it's one of those plot points where I do have while I do still have confidence Oda when it comes to Oda with most of this story. I mean, it is his story, so I have confidence he's going to address it. I'm still a little concerned by the fact that things have gone completely dark with at least the stuff with Pudding. Like, for so long, like after we learned about what happened to her, like it's just a little strange that some of these plot points are left dangling for as long as they are. And I'm hoping we get to touch base with at least a couple of these soon, because I feel like it's one of those things where I feel like Oda just might be dangling that a lot of these plot points or a lot of these plot threads around a little too much for me. But I still have faith Oda can address it properly. With that said, guys, that's all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe from the Blue Sky, and on this Crunchyroll, be sure to page bell, hit the subscribe button, and just share it around, guys. Dark Knight signing off. Later, everyone.